Hello everyone, and welcome to this question and answer session at St Anne's College. And we've set it up to be for parents, for carers, for teachers. This is something we do at normal open days, partly because I know sometimes applicants really don't want their parents asking questions in front of them. So I want everyone to feel like it's a safe space where they can ask anything that they want. So please do submit questions as we're talking, and we'll do our very best to answer them. So my name's Helen King, and I'm principal of St Anne's College. It's actually the college where I studied philosophy, politics and economics way back in the 1980s. And I've been back here as principal for about 3.5 years now. I'm delighted that we have student ambassadors with us today who can answer questions about what it's really like at Oxford. And I can promise you that I haven't told them what to say. They will give you completely honest answers. And I can answer questions around the admissions process itself, not because I'm directly involved. Admissions decisions are made by subject tutors, but I sit and in fact chair the university's admissions committee now. So I have a pretty good understanding of how the system works. And I should probably also add that I'm a parent whose my daughters have recently graduated. So I do understand a bit about just how stressful the whole UCAS system and applying to Oxbridge is, not just for your student, your young person, but also for you. And so I hope today we can provide you with some useful information about how you can best support your young person to make the decisions that are going to be right for them, and if they apply, to make the best application they possibly can. So I'd now like to ask each of our student ambassadors to introduce themselves a little bit about the subject they're studying, the year they're in, and maybe a bit about themselves as well. Joseph, can I start with you, and then we'll go to Maya and Suna. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Joseph. I'm a third year now, studying law with French law at St Anne's. So because I'm on my third year, I'm speaking to you all from Paris. Next week I start my studies at a university in Paris where I'll be studying French law. I'm originally from Liverpool, so from the northwest. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time at St Anne's so far. I'm missing it a lot. Being as nice as Paris is, I would of course love to be back at my home in St Anne's. Yep, so I'm more than happy to answer any questions, anything to do with studying law at Oxford, studying at St Anne's in particular. I also do athletics. Last year I was the male squad captain for the men's hurdles team, so you can answer any questions on sports in Oxford. And last year as well, I was also the JCR president, so I was the sort of undergraduate student body president at St Anne's. So again, can answer any questions to do with St Anne's and what it's like to sort of get involved in things outside your degree at St Anne's in particular.
Hi everyone, I'm Maya. I'm going into my second year of history and Spanish at St Anne's. I'm from the northeast. I live in North Tyneside, which is currently on local lockdown. Lots of fun here. But I'm really happy to answer questions about like what's it like coming from like the northeast, which is like the furthest away you can kind of get when you're in England still. I do a lot of like performance outside of my studies. I am the co-president of an a cappella group, and I'm also the St Anne's welfare rep. So I'm happy to answer questions about like well-being at St Anne's and all that kind of thing as well. Yeah, it's kind of everything.
Hi, I'm Suna. I'm a medic going into my second year at St Anne's. I'm also from the north, but a bit closer. I'm from West Yorkshire, which is also under local lockdown, so we're also having fun here. Yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions about anything. I'm part of like the Bollywood dance team at Oxford, and I'm happy to answer questions about like how diverse Oxford is and what it's like coming from home to moving to Oxford, because I feel like there might be questions on that, as it is kind of a change. Yeah, that's basically it.
That's great. Thank you, all of you. And I should emphasise that absolutely no question is off limits. We know there are lots of stereotypes and stories that go around about what Oxford is like, and particularly maybe from students from underrepresented backgrounds. At St Anne's, we're really committed to wanting to be a diverse college and to make sure that everybody can feel at home at St Anne's. So we will be completely honest with you about where we've still got progress to be made. But we, absolutely want to answer whatever your concerns are. And I thought maybe the first question I'd like to pose to our student ambassadors is, what are the good reasons for applying to Oxford, and what are the bad reasons for not applying to Oxford, if that makes sense? I was saying to them before that one of our students, in fact, he just graduated with a first-class degree this last summer, told me that when he first mentioned that he was thinking about applying to Oxford, his nan said to him, people like us don't apply to Oxford. And his dad said to him, Oxford's too expensive, I can't afford for you to go there. And one of his teachers said to him, don't apply to Oxford, you'll have much more fun at another university. So I guess there are three sort of stereotypes. One is that Oxford's really expensive, one that is just full of posh or rich people, and one that nobody gets to have any fun at Oxford because there's too much work to do. So I suppose I'd like to ask each of our students to maybe pick one or two of those themes and comment on whether they think there's any truth in that. And who are the types of people that they'd be saying to, you really should apply to Oxford, it's the university for you. Should we go in reverse order this time? Suna, then Maya, then Joseph.
Yeah, so I would say, so the one about having fun at Oxford, you definitely can. Like, it is a lot of work, but I think other unis, there's probably just as much work. And like I think you might go in thinking there's more than there is, but you make time for things. Like before going, I was like, how am I going to do anything? I don't think I'll have time to join societies. I'll have so many contact hours, I won't be able to do anything. But like, I was just really wrong about all of it. I like found time to make time to do stuff. You're like, oh, I've got to do work, so I will. And it's maybe changed since coming home because I haven't been forced to do it, but it's just like, you will find time and you will be able to do stuff. And it's definitely not full of posh and rich people. Like, there might be some, you run into all kinds of people at Oxford. And I just think at ANDS especially, it's like a very welcoming, friendly community. Like, you will find people that are like you, so you can go and find out who you want to like be friends with and who you want to mix with. So there's like no like pressure to only be involved with people that you don't want to see at all.
Yeah, I totally agree. I definitely heard all of those myths when I was applying. People like friends, family, teachers, I all said that kind of thing to me. Not necessarily like it discouraging me, but there was more concerns that I wouldn't fit in, or that like a lot of people do think that Oxford's more expensive, and it's actually not. Like, the cost of living is a bit more expensive than it is where I'm from, but it's not that much more. As long as you like are able to budget, you'll be okay. But it's like that in any student city, really. But yeah, like just what Suna said, like, yeah, there are some people who come from like really expensive private schools, but some of those people are actually some of my best friends. So it's really interesting because you just meet a complete mix of people. And I think especially at St Anne's, everyone's kind of come for like a fresh start, and you don't really have this kind of, like, I had an idea that people would come up to and be like, oh, what school are you from? Oh, I went to this school, you know, Boris Johnson, that's my uncle. Like, I thought that would happen. It doesn't happen really. It's not in my experience anyway. But yeah, and I agree with Suna, like, you can definitely have fun. It is 100% what you make of it. Like, if you are, or if like your child or student is someone who wants to work really hard, like, they will, but they can still also do the other things that they want to do. And I think that it's really important that we kind of tell people that they should also do the fun things. Like, for me, that's like singing and stuff like that, because that makes your degree easier. If you're spending 24/7 focused on just your degree and just your work, you will get sucked into like a sort of negative spiral. But if you take a break and do things that you want to do, then it makes everything a lot easier. So yeah, there's 100% time for fun.
Reiterate sort of everything that's just been said before me. I'd say that the reasons that were given in the story were sort of three bad reasons for not applying to Oxford, if that makes sense. Because yeah, certainly as to the cost, like May did say, it most probably is, I think, the standard of living, just the cost of living is just a bit more expensive than say where I'm from. But I think there are certain other things that sort of counterbalance that. So in terms of accommodation, for example, I know that accommodation costs that I've been paying since I got here, again, because you're here for the 8 weeks, the slightly shorter terms, you're paying slightly less. So that sort of makes it out a bit cheaper. And certainly I think paying the food in the halls, the food there is really well priced. So often you can sort of save money there. I think, yeah, the money really isn't that much of an issue. And there's plenty of financial support available as well through bursaries, scholarships, and plenty of other sort of avenues. The university is very sort of generous, I think, in terms of the money that it gives out. And obviously, I think in the application process, it's looking for people who will benefit at Oxford, and I think it does sort of all that it has in its power to be able to make sure that everyone who sort of the university thinks should be at Oxford will be at Oxford, no matter what sort of financial background they're coming from. And yeah, as for the fun, I think quite a few of my friends from home have said, through seeing what I've been up to on Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat and whatnot, oh my goodness, can't believe how much fun you're having. Not gonna lie, didn't think you'd be having that much fun, like sort of get bang into that stereotype, but seems like you're having more fun than everyone else from school. And sort of I was quite proud of that. I thought, yes, Oxford, I'm having more fun. I think there's such a wide variety of things to do. Yes, of course, you have your clubbing, your nights out and whatnot, but I think there are so many different kinds of other social events at Oxford where you can just have to lead such a social, healthy life, whether it's going to see your friends in a performance or something, or going to like a talk that some famous persons come to give, or going to see a debate, for example, going to a formal dinner at a nice fancy 3-course meal at college. I just think there are so many different ways of having fun at Oxford. And I know I've enjoyed pretty much every second. Yes, like it's been said, of course, you are at Oxford, you do expect it to be like a fair bit of academic work. But I think if you manage your time well, then you have plenty of fun.
Great, thanks for that. Yeah, I just want to emphasise what Joseph was saying about the financial support available. The university has something called Crankstart scholarships, which for UK applicants are automatically allocated to anyone with a household income. I think it's of less than 42,000, and it's at graded levels. So if you're from a lower income family, you're actually going to get much more financial support at Oxford than any other university. And as a college, we make sure that the food is good and it's cheap. And as the students have been saying, you're only paying rent for an 8-week term. So although the city isn't the cheapest, it is absolutely affordable to anyone who can get a place here. I think other good reasons for coming to Oxford, obviously there are lots of opportunities that you can get at other universities as well, but the teaching system is somewhat different in that all our students, all our undergraduates are taught in tutorials, where normally there's kind of 2 students to 1 academic tutor. Our tutors are world leaders in their subjects. They're all researchers, so they're incredible people. Also colleges. So a college is where you live and where you have your tutorials, and it's often where you spend a lot of your time and make a lot of your friends. And so you have friends doing lots of different subjects, and it can be a really supportive environment. And at St Anne's, we pride ourselves not just being in welcoming and friendly, but if people have specific needs, maybe disabilities and so on, it's a point of principle to us that we want everybody to succeed, and we'll put the support in place that's necessary in order to make that happen. I guess it might be good to ask the students about tutorials, and maybe as well as talking about how tutorials work and what it's like being taught by these people who, in the abstract, it sounds quite scary, doesn't it, being taught by an Oxford professor who's a world leader in the field. And I think maybe could you combine in that what it's like to be interviewed, because you're interviewed as an applicant by the people who would be teaching you as a tutor. And we've got a range of subjects represented here. So I think it would be good for people to get a feel for what it's like to be interviewed. And maybe there were some things you did that you think with hindsight were particularly useful in terms of preparation. Should we go Maya, Suna, Joseph this time? Thanks.
So in terms of being interviewed and then subsequently having tutorials with your tutors, I think something that's really important to make sure that students know is that these tutors don't want to trip anyone up. They don't want to catch you out. Like, they're trying to challenge you and stretch you. And I think particularly going into interviews, which is always going to be scary. It is a bit scary because these people are like professionals and they're super intelligent. An important thing to remember is that they just want to see how you think, and they just want to see how you work. And there's not really any like magical answer that you could give that would like make them see you in a certain way. It's just about, because these tutors like don't want you to feel like you're backed into a corner. It's just about sort of seeing how your thought processes work, and yeah, like just trying to get to know how you learn, because tutorials are like a sort of conversational style of learning, which is really different to other unis. So it's just important for tutors to like have you test that out and see if it's something that works for you, because everyone's different. So it's not really, I feel like something that was quite good for me in my interview was that I'd had no pressure to get into Oxford. Like everyone was kind of hoping I wouldn't. So I was like, oh, whatever, we'll see how this goes. I'll get in, I'll not get in, like we'll see. So it's quite important to try and take that sort of huge, like, oh my God, this is Oxford thing, take that off your shoulders and just kind of go, look, if it's it, like if it's meant to be, it's meant to be, that kind of thing. Because it is, the tutor at the end of the day is just another human being, and it's just about talking about something that you're really interested in and having a good discussion.
So my interview experience is pretty good. Like for medicine, I did have interviews at other unis as well, and I think that my Oxford interview was my favourite. It was kind of scary, but like you sit there and it's just a conversation. Like it ended so quickly. Like the first question was just like, oh, what's it like? What's it like where you've come from? What's there to do when you live? And honestly, that was the worst question because there's nothing to do where I live. And after that, it was a breeze. So they like the tutors do try to make you feel welcome. Like they want you to be able to like feel relaxed enough, be able to say what you're saying, and like be able to like take part in the conversation. And it's totally fine to say that you don't know things. Like I think I did in like all of mine probably. And they just give you some more information and like help you work through problems. They just want to see how you're thinking, really. Like whatever you think and whatever you like explain, it's fine, just go with it. And if you're wrong, it's fine, like just they'll tell you, and then you can like move on and try see if you can get to it another way. And like they are quite similar to tutorials with you like answering questions, and you also get the chance to ask questions. And at ANS for medicine, we have a combination of Oxford tutors and students that tutor us that in like their clinical years, which is really helpful because they've like been through it very recently, and like they know what we want to know, and they're like, I remember when I was doing it, so I know what you like want to know specifically, which is really good. And you also get like the extra knowledge from your Oxford tutors. So it's just like a great way to learn because you get to ask the questions you want to go over and like the topics that you want to go into, and like any extension stuff, they're so happy to like explain anything to you that you want to know.
Into your experiences, I may as well sort of bring up the fact that I didn't even originally apply to St Anne's. Originally, I applied to Brasenose College, and it was during that week of interviews where I had obviously some law interviews at Brasenose, but through what's called pooling, which basically means St Anne's also said, oh, we want to interview as well. So on my last day of interviews, I also went to do a law interview at St Anne's, which means that I sort of experienced law interviews at two different colleges. And whilst obviously the content of the interviews was sort of different, it was quite clear that they're both sort of testing those same skills in terms of critical analysis. Both of them involved pre-reading, where before the interview I was given, in one it was a case, and another it was an article which I had to sort of read over and then discuss my thoughts on it in the interview, answer some questions on what I'd read before, obviously answer one or two introductory questions about a personal statement. But I think, most of the interviews are sort of testing how you think. I think your sort of how you reason, your thought processes are really important. So one thing that I found really useful before going to interview was with either my teachers or even just my parents, setting aside some time and picking out a question, usually law related, and just speaking and thinking out loud. And I think I found that really beneficial, as I think sometimes, I guess it's something perhaps that everyone does. You don't usually think out loud and sort of speak out loud what's going through your head as you're thinking through a problem. But that is what I think Oxford tutors really want to see. They want to see how you're tackling a problem, how you're thinking about it, what's going through your head. So I think it can be really beneficial to practice that beforehand with a teacher or a parent, just someone who you can speak to and sort of, again, go through your thought processes. And also to always, I think, not be afraid to say if you think you've done something wrong. I did that, I think, twice across my interviews. I was thinking and I said, oh, hang on a minute. No, I think I've done that wrong. Can I have a few seconds to just go back? And then sort of went back and said, okay, this is what I actually think now. Because I think tutors, again, that's something they appreciate, and that they can see that you can see where you've gone wrong, and then you can sort of reassess, reevaluate your thoughts and views, and then sort of make a second attempt and try again. So yeah, I think my sort of, I guess, 2 interview tips would always be to think out loud and don't be afraid to admit when you've gone wrong.
To add to something that Joseph said, in terms of like interview practice, there's a really good website called Oxplore, which gives you like practice like Oxford interview questions. So you don't have to be an expert in a subject to help like your student or your child prepare for the interviews, because all they need to do is just take a question that's a bit hard to answer and just talk to you about how they would go about it. And that is really great practice. One of my teachers did that with me, and that was really useful.
Yeah, and the Oxplore website actually has got some really interesting things on it. And I guess I'd reiterate that as a parent. I guess particularly if your student is applying for a subject that you don't know anything about, you might feel like, I really can't help here. But one thing you can do is ask them what they've been reading, ask them to explain it to you, ask them questions about, well, what do they think about that, and why do they think that, and are there any weaknesses in what they think, or why do other people think something different? And in a way, the questions that you might think are quite stupid to ask will really get them thinking. And most importantly, as Joseph says, talking aloud. I don't know how else you talk, actually, but speaking and explaining their thoughts is really good practice. And please do reassure them that if a tutor comes back and says, well, why do you think that? Or here's another argument, aren't you wrong? That they shouldn't take that as criticism of their answer. That's academic debate and discussion. And I think maybe often at school, if a teacher queries what you've done, it may be because you've got it wrong. And in Oxford, if you get something right, you'll still be queried why you've done it that way, because that's part of the academic discussion. So to get used to that, I think, is helpful. I guess there's something I pick up on, I think, what Maya said, where she said she felt no pressure to get into Oxford. Apparently some people didn't want her to. I'm not quite sure what that was about, but that's fine.
Yeah.
I think sometimes in an applicant's mind, applying to Oxford can be built up into a huge thing, you know, because you have to apply earlier and maybe you have admissions tests to do, or for some subjects you have to submit work. But if you can help your student to understand that it's just one of their 5 choices on their UCAS form. There are other great universities in the UK, but why not give Oxford a go? And to try and enjoy the process, if that doesn't sound too strange. What I do see in our students is that virtually all of them do really love their subject and they want to study it, and it's not a drain on their energies to do that. So if they can go into an interview feeling like, what an amazing opportunity to talk to a world-leading expert on their subject, then that's a kind of great starting point. You know, and the tutors might ask what feel like difficult questions, but they're not being difficult. They want to support you to get through the interview and to be able to enjoy it in some sort of way. I guess another question that I often get asked by parents is, obviously on the UCAS form, you don't have to specify a college. You can do what's called an open application. But many people think that they should specify a college, but how on earth do you choose which one to apply for? Now, I guess you've gathered that all of ours are very happy at St Anne's. So maybe do you want to do a bit of a sales pitch on, you know, what are the things that you think a student should take into account as a good reason for choosing a college? And I suppose I should just put the proviso on that because we want to make sure it's a level playing field, that your choice of college doesn't make a difference as to whether you're more likely to get a place or not. I think it's 1 in 5 offers come from a college other than the one the student applied to. So you might end up like Joseph. You mistakenly think you want to go somewhere other than St Anne's, but actually it all works out in the end. And I say that flippantly because seriously, nearly everybody loves the college they end up at. But we think there are some pretty special things about St Anne's. So should we start with Suna, then Joseph, then Maya?
So I actually didn't apply to ANS either. I also applied to Brasenose, but that was mainly because my friend in the year above was there, and so like that was the only college that I really remembered seeing. Because I was like, oh, she's there. I don't know what to choose a college off. This is too much stress. I'm just gonna pick a random one, and then that's what I chose. But like, if I could go back and like think about what I was doing, I probably would pick St. Anne's. I know that I'm there, but it's really close to the medical school, which is very handy for me. Like 10 minutes walk is through University Parks, which is lovely. It's not like in the center, so like I think maybe decide like where you want to be location wise is quite a good one. So I think a lot of colleges are quite similar in like their courses. Well, they are for medicine because a lot of our teaching is centralized. But so I think about things like location, like how big you want it to be. I think ANS is a bit on the bigger side. Like if you want a kitchen, ANS has kitchens, which I'm so glad that I have now, because I know that Brasenose, they don't really have them. It's like, sorry, that's the only other college that I really know about. And like, I'm so glad that I have the choice to be able to eat in halls or like cook for myself. And like, there's more like the specific of like, where do you want to live? Or like, where do you want to be for the next 3, 4, or however many years you're going to be at university for?
Agree with Suna, and that things like location and size, I think, are two sort of good reasons for picking one college over the other. Because yeah, some people, you might like do a certain subject and that college is near your faculty. You might be really good at a certain sport and want to do that sport, and that might be near where you'll be doing practice for it. And yet size, because all the colleges do have different sizes. Some are big, some are small, some have more people, some have less people. And some people just prefer being in a bigger group or being in a smaller group. And I think accommodation also, again, is a really important point. And I think just broadly, just try, and I guess it might be difficult if you can't visit Oxford, but I think if you do have the chance to visit Oxford and look around the colleges, then do, because I think it is about looking and seeing, would I be happy to sort of live here for the length of my degree? Is this somewhere where I could like really see myself? Whether it is literally just looking at it from accommodation, whether they do have more kitchens, what the rooms are like, and that kind of thing. And I think it's just some kind of like general nebulous concept about where you'd feel at home, which is sort of quite hard to pin down. And especially when you're only going for an open day or visiting a college, but certainly from speaking to students, I guess like you are now, seeing us and hearing us talk about the college, making sure to hear student accounts of what their time has been like at the college, what they've really liked about the college, and getting to sort of hear those kind of testimonials, I think sometimes can sort of help you decide, oh, that sounds like somewhere where I could really see myself, where I'd really enjoy it. Yeah, when I came to Oxford Open Day, I wish I planned it out better and I sort of just walked along the high street, which is sort of the big high street in one of the main sort of streets in Oxford, and just went to all the colleges there and didn't really plan my day out. So I was just walking along, and then someone would say, oh, come in here, see this college, and then I'd go and see that college. And perhaps I wish I had thought about it a bit more, maybe done some more research before I'd gone down to Oxford and thought about the different colleges which I'd actually really like to go and see. But yeah, definitely I couldn't imagine myself now being anywhere else, and I feel sort of completely at home in St. Anne's. I think it's the best college ever and all that. It really, so wherever you end up, you'll have a great time.
So I did apply at St. Anne's, and I couldn't come to like an open day because I decided to apply to Oxford like way too late, so the train tickets were like 150 quid, so that didn't happen. So I did all of my research like online. I don't know if it still exists, but the first thing I did was like a student made like college quiz, like which Oxford college should you go to. It's definitely out there somewhere, and that was interesting to like, kind of show me what I should be looking for, and things that we've said like size and location are really important. And the things that drew me specifically to St. Anne's were like the size of like the undergrad body, because I'm quite glad to be somewhere where there's a lot of people. But something that's really good I think about St. Anne's is that all of us well, not all of us, but almost all of us live on site. You get 3 years of accommodation at St. Anne's, which is another reason why I applied. But the actual campus site of St. Anne's isn't massive, so you actually bump into people quite a lot, and I find that really homely and really welcoming. Because a different college that I nearly applied to is like beautiful, but it's humongous, and I feel like if I was walking anywhere, I might not see anyone, and I think that would feel really strange for me. So a nice thing about St. Anne's is that there's a lot of us on one site. So there's a proper like community feel about it. It's really lovely. Also, the kitchen access, like Suna said, is really important to me as well. No like amazing chef, but I do like a cheese toastie. So it's nice to have that like opportunity to just live with a kitchen, because there are some colleges where in first year you're sharing your kitchen with like half of the year, which is not something that I wanted to do. I had a tutorial partner in a different college who like couldn't even have like I think she didn't even have a fridge in her room, like, and she didn't have a fridge or a kitchen like near her, so she told me that she can make pot noodles in the kettle, which I just don't want to think about, to be honest. And yeah, I don't know how you would clean it, but yeah, like that is not an issue we have at St. Anne's because we have kitchens. And another good thing about Anne's as well, which obviously is dependent on what every individual wants, is definitely the location from the centre of town, because it's a sort of 10-15 minute walk to Oxford Centre, which I think is really nice because it means that I kind of get some fresh air. It's not like I kind of roll out of bed and then roll into my lecture. Like I do kind of wake up on the way to my lecture, which is always good. But it's not so far that I feel detached from Oxford. So it's really nice like that. And I think another thing that really drew me to Anne's in particular is that it just seemed like really endearing in terms of like the community of it, which is like 100% what I think it is like now that I'm here. I remember there's like a Welcome to St. Anne's video on the college website, and I watched it and I thought it was really funny, and I kind of thought, well, if I think that's funny, then other people who find it funny will apply to this college and then I'll be friends with them. And I think as someone who hadn't been to Oxford, didn't really know anyone who'd been to Oxford, it was kind of like nice to think, okay, so maybe this is normal, maybe it's all normal, maybe it's fine. I definitely feel like that at St. Anne's. But it is of course like another myth, because I have really good friends in different colleges, like colleges that I think are like posh or like prestigious. I still have really good friends at those colleges, so you do end up comfortable wherever you go. I just think Anne's is great.
That's great to hear. The videos really are worth checking out. We've got a few of them. I guess a couple of things I'd just add to that. Probably the most important thing in college choice is making sure that the college you're applying for does the subject that you want to study. It sounds really obvious, but some colleges don't offer that many subjects. St. Anne's offers nearly all subjects. But for instance, if you want to study theology or human sciences, don't apply to St. Anne's, because they're one of the very few subjects that we don't do, sadly. I guess two other things. One, in terms of location, we're really near to some departments, because some departments are now this side of town. One of the things I like about the site of the college, and I'm fortunate enough that I get to live here, is that we're not swamped by tourists in the summer. And it kind of sounds a bit odd, but honestly, in the summer, Oxford city centre is just packed with coach loads of tourists who sort of stand in the middle of the road and block your way when you're trying to get somewhere. And if you're unlucky and have a ground floor bedroom in some colleges, you'll find tourists kind of looking in your bedroom window, which probably isn't ideal. But maybe that just shows my intolerance to tourists who come here because it's beautiful, and we're very lucky to live in a beautiful city. I guess the last thing I'd add about a good reason to apply to St. Anne's, although most 17-year-olds aren't thinking about this, is the support and opportunities that we have for students in terms of thinking about their future careers. So the university actually has a fantastic careers service, and we're the nearest undergraduate college to it. It's just over Banbury Road. But we also have a fantastic array of internships that the college offers each year. And if you go on the website, you can see the full list of them. But it includes, they're all paid, I should add. And it includes things like internship with the New Statesman, with the Prince's Trust, with a law firm in India. There's, such a huge array. And because they're only open to St. Anne's students, even in your first year, you've got a really good chance of securing a paid internship for the long vacation. And we also have alumni who provide careers advice, counselling for CV workshops and those kind of things. And on graduation, each year up to 7 students get the chance of a funded year in Japan, where they can learn Japanese during that year at a university that we have a relationship out there. So it's actually really unusual for a college to have such a wide array of opportunities to support students as they're thinking about what they want to do after they've finished their degree. I guess what I'd like to come on to next is parents do tend to worry about their kids. And I guess I'd welcome your take on maybe if someone has a disability or a mental health issue, or is particularly anxious, maybe hasn't been away from home before, or maybe comes from a group that makes them feel like they might be in a minority, whether that's in terms of their ethnicity, their religion, LGBTQ, all those kind of different aspects that maybe would make some individuals feel less confident about whether they'd fit in or whether they'd have support. So I guess I'd welcome, whether it's your personal experience or from friends you know, about the kind of services and ethos the college has to make sure that everyone can do well here and be well as well. What order should we go in? Should we say Joseph, Suna, Maya? Sorry.
I'll leave a lot of the welfare stuff to Maya, as she is the welfare rep, so she can talk to you a lot about that. But certainly I think from my experience and looking at the experience of my friends, and I guess also from being JCR president last year, so I was sort of the front line of St Anne's when all the new freshers started, was there to help plan their freshers week and help them settle in. I can sort of speak to the role of, I guess, the JCR in that way, not only from a welfare perspective, but also on the sort of undergraduate student body committee. There's also an equalities committee, which has an equal opportunities representative, a BAME representative, an LGBTQ plus representative, a women's representative. I'm sure there are others that I'm missing out, but yeah, there's a whole small committee there on the JCR whose task is to make those who might feel underrepresented or out of place to feel included in college, and they host a series of social events throughout the year for those different sort of demographics to help mix with each other and to provide plenty of sort of fun opportunities for them to sort of relax, have a good time, and again, I guess to feel sort of welcome, to feel at home, and a great chance of meeting other people as well who might feel the same as them, so they can sort of bond and form friendships there, and hopefully they can sort of help in a way sort of work through any sort of, whether they're homesick or something, work through that together. And I think one of the great things about St Anne's is just how cohesive a community it is. I think straight away from my first week here all the way back in 2018 when I was a fresher, I felt that straight away, and that it seemed like everyone was sort of friends with each other. In halls at lunch and dinner, people would always be just sitting with each other or sitting with different people, having a sort of a nice time, a nice chat. And I think everyone really, it is a really sort of welcoming, homely community where you do feel sort of a part of something bigger, which I think wherever you are, when I first I felt very homesick. So I think if you are sort of having those kind of worries and anxieties, it's much easier and you feel much more comfortable reaching out to, whether it is your friends or whether it is some of the welfare services that May will be talking about. I think the community and the environment fosters a culture where there isn't as much shame about those kind of things, and you do feel like you can go to your friends, your tutors even, at all the welfare services, and then open up and talk about those issues.
So I was like a little bit worried about going to Oxford, just in terms of like how diverse it would be, because at home it's pretty good, and like at Oxford it is not as like as diverse as it is at home, but it's actually something that's like not bothered me that much at Oxford, especially at Anne's. Like Anne's is definitely one of the more diverse colleges, and like it was quite nice to see other people like me. But like even people that weren't, they were so nice and so welcoming. I've never felt like that I don't belong there or that I shouldn't be there or anything at all like that. And like as Joseph mentioned, we do have a BAME rep, and like this year, I think she's going to put on loads of activities. I know there was a BAME formal the year that, like last year when I was there, and like there've been like some socials that I've been going to, and even within like the BAME community, there's been like separate ones. Like I'm part of the Bollywood dance team. I did have to go out like and find it, but it was definitely something that was worth doing. Like at the huge like freshers fair, you can go and look at all the societies and decide which ones you want to join. And like the people there are so nice, and that you can literally ask them anything. Like they want you to talk to them. I realize it might be a bit different online, but like definitely take the opportunity to go and like look out for them, because like whether you want to be part of like a big one or like smaller specific ones, there'll definitely be stuff like out there for you to go and find. It just takes like a little bit of effort, but once you're like part of it, it's so chill, and it's so nice to like be able to talk to people about like where you come from and things like that. So it's never been like, it was a worry before I got there, but it was just something that I didn't have to worry about. And I'm glad that like Anne's has been so welcoming and so chill, because it was just so nice.
In terms of sort of like welfare support and that kind of thing, I feel like at St. Anne's especially, like student wellbeing is like a huge priority. And I'm not just saying that because I'm the welfare rep, because I technically haven't started yet. So this is just like what I've seen from college. And I genuinely think that our college really does kind of understand that a student has to be well to do well, which is like what Helen said. It's kind of like a little motto that we have, which a lot of colleges don't put that same emphasis on making sure that the students are doing well within themselves. And I think it's a really lovely thing to have. I think the college system is actually like, it works quite well in terms of welfare, because you get to know the students and the staff around you. So there's a lot of like small things that actually work together to make sure there's a really supportive community around you. For example, you have college parents when you arrive as a fresher, and they're like your second year counterparts. So they do a subject like yours, and they're there to kind of like check in on you or like answer any questions, and to make sure you feel welcomed from straight away, because it is quite a huge transition to move to university. And there'll be a lot of students who feel particularly worried about that. My advice would be, like, based on what other people have told me, is that like if someone knows that they have a history of a mental illness or something that they struggle with, kind of, even if they don't struggle as much with it anymore, it's still recommended that you like declare that to, I think we have like a disabilities advisor. I don't want to give the wrong name just in case someone gets their email spammed, but it obviously that will not work against you at all. Your tutors won't know about that unless you kind of say, oh, this is infecting me right now and I would like to talk to my tutors about it. But it just means that if you declare in advance that you have either a disability or like ongoing mental health condition, that means that you can get the help that you need kind of faster if they already have sort of support systems in place for you. I also think tutors can be really understanding as well. Like it is like a high workload at Oxford, and especially in first year, I think you kind of get a shock, and like that's okay because everyone goes through the same thing. So you just talk to each other about it. But if you genuinely like, within yourself, if 1 week you just maybe like perhaps aren't in a good place and you just feel like your brain is going to explode, everyone has that moment, and that's okay, because genuinely, if you say to your tutor, I'm really sorry, but I'm too busy this week and this essay is kind of like, I can't really finish it. Not like it's okay to tell your tutor that you can't do that essay. Like I've done that, and the tutor said, yeah, that's fine. Like either you can hand it in at the end of term or in the holiday, or just don't worry about it at all, because they trust that we know ourselves, and that's something that you should feel confidence in. Like, yourself, what your own kind of boundaries are, and like how much exactly you can do, and your tutors respect that, because like we're adults now, I guess. And you also have, I should probably explain what a welfare rep is, actually. So as Joseph kind of said, you have like a JCR committee, which are in our college, it's generally second years, who are kind of like in charge of like asking college to do things for the students, and also like arranging events and things like that. So you have two welfare reps, a man and a woman usually, and they kind of organize these things called welfare teas, which is just like a little drop in where you just chat to people from different like courses and year groups and just have some snacks. And we're kind of in charge of like organizing opportunities for people to come forward with issues if they have them. So it's all about kind of making this like inclusive, welcoming atmosphere. So if someone does feel like they're really struggling with something, they've met someone who they can talk to about it. Because the welfare reps also get peer support training from the university counselling service. So you're not trained to be a counsellor, but you're trained to listen to people's problems and help them work out what to do next, and help them to sort of find the right people if their problem is like quite serious. So yeah, there really is like a lot of different welfare support out there. Something that's quite special about St. Anne's as well, actually, is that we have a welfare dean who is a mental health professional, and you can speak to her about problems that you're facing, and she'll help you like get through that as well. And if it's affecting your work at all, like you won't get like told off, you'll just be like helped to get through that. And I think that's a really great thing. So yeah, I think I've kind of covered that. Like there's a lot of different things in place, and there's always people who you can ask if you don't know what exactly you are like entitled to.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Maya. As Maya says, we have a Dean of Welfare. We also have a college nurse who's on site. So there are drop-in clinics you can go into with either physical or mental health issues. And our disability coordinator is called Sheila Smith. And she's a bit of a legend, really. Whatever the issue, Sheila will sort out the support you need. So we've had students with quite severe Asperger's syndrome, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, mental health issues, eating disorders, and also people with physical disabilities. I think we were all quite sad when a student who lived on site with his guide dog graduated, because the guide dog had sort of become an honorary member of the community, and that was something we all enjoyed. So yes, I'd emphasise that if you do have a disability or an issue, we'd much rather know, because then we can get the help in place. So if you're not sure whether to include it on your UCAS form or whatever, we just say please do, and then we can make any adjustments that are necessary. I guess something that a lot of people will be wondering about is, since the pandemic, obviously a lot's changed. So Joseph was talking about clubbing earlier, and I was just thinking, probably not this next term just coming, and things like big dinners in the dining hall and so on are clearly not going to be happening while social distancing has to be in place. So there's lots and lots of work been going on in college to get ready for this next term. And we've been briefing students, and the current JCR committee, the student representatives, have very much been part of the work that we've been doing. So these students can't tell you what that's going to be like yet, because term hasn't started. But it probably would be helpful if you could share a bit of what last term was like, where you were having to learn remotely and you weren't in Oxford. So how was that? I guess both academically, did you feel you could still progress with your studies? You know, you weren't coming to the libraries in Oxford and so on. But I guess it would be interesting for people to hear what it was like socially as well, with not being able to actually physically be at university. Should we go Suna, Maya, Joseph?
I won't lie, it was kind of difficult doing term online, just because you have all the work of uni, but like you're at home, so you don't really see anyone that much. Like the stuff that we got given was really good. Like all of our lectures were online, and they like still are. So if we wanted to rewatch them for any reason, we could. Like we had our tutorials still, and like usually we have to write essays, but this year for first year medics and I think second year medics, the exams have changed, so we don't have essays in our exams this year. So our tutors were like, well, there's no point like writing essays, and gave us different questions. So like they were quite willing to be flexible and like adapt to what we had to do for our exams, which was really good. And like, yeah, we still had our tutorials, which are good. They were like, they still went on like pretty normal. It is kind of different doing them online, but like our tutors were like, we're willing to do it. And even if it has to be odd hours, especially because one of our tutors is a sixth year who just graduated, and she is like now working in hospitals, and she still was like, I'll still do tutorials for you if you're okay doing them like on evenings and weekends, which we thought was really nice of her to like still give up her time to do that for us. Like sometimes socially, like me and my friends would just do like, I think everyone went through the Zoom quiz phase maybe, like that kind of helped, like having something to do. And like to do some of our work, me and a couple of medics would like call each other and do like our DR quizzes together. It is difficult, but hopefully like things will get better and we'll be able to like go back in and do some of our stuff in person again, like doing our DR, because that's kind of hard to like, it's hard to learn anatomy online without seeing it, but fingers crossed for some stuff in person next term.
Yeah, it was definitely a strange experience. Like there's no like other way around it. It was really strange to be sat in my sitting room learning for my course. Like that was bizarre. So I'm quite looking forward to going back to Oxford, because even though I think lectures are still going to be online, and there'll probably be other things that are still online, I still feel like it'll feel easier than just being in my house all the time and not even being able to see my friends. Because I feel like at the moment in Oxford, like you're still allowed to be in like small groups as long as you socially distance, and I do think that will make all the difference. I think it'll make all the difference from being in your house with no one. because you'll still have someone to kind of go to. Even if you can't give them a hug, you could still be like, I don't understand this essay, and they could be like, same. So I think it will be okay, because we definitely weren't left behind by the uni. Like, I didn't feel like that at all. I felt like everyone really wanted to try and keep some kind of structure and keep the same kind of level of teaching to the best that they could. And I think they did that really well, because as Suna said, like, we still had tutorials, we still had lectures to watch. Granted, I didn't watch all my lectures because my exams got cancelled, but they were there, the option was there. So it will be different, definitely, but it's still, I can tell it's still going to be a good experience, because I feel like all societies, for example, like probably the one, like the Bollywood one that Suna talked about, and then like things like LGBTQ society, or there's other societies like drama societies, everyone wants to like adapt and keep it going just in a new way. So there will be plenty of things to do. They'll just be a bit more on the screen.
Fortunate, and I think law is a subject which lends itself quite well to online learning, and that at Oxford I have relatively few contact hours. It's mostly just consists of either 1 or 2 1-hour tutorials a week, which, as Helen mentioned, is always 2 hours with my tutor, and then lectures, which is sort of optional. And all of those transitioned very well online. Like everyone said, lectures were all online, which was great, because then you can pause them, go and get yourself something to eat or a glass of water, then come back. Or if you misheard something, didn't have enough time to type something down, then you can rewind it and play it again. So that was great, loved that. And yeah, my tutorial, again, 2-on-1, worked very well online. And I think it was me from Liverpool, my tutorial partner from Ireland, and then my tutor from Brooklyn in New York. So the time differences are a bit funny. We had to have tutorials much later in the afternoon so that our tutor could be with us. But again, that worked sort of seamlessly almost. My deadline, just like an essay for a tutorial, again, relatively easy to sort of like submit the essay. We can still talk about it through Microsoft Teams online. So everything academically, I thought, sort of transitioned very well. Any textbooks that I wouldn't be able to access through the library, we were given I think it was the law faculty sort of, and I presume it's the same for most subjects. The university negotiated these kind of deals with all the publishing companies so that most textbooks were all available online. So I never felt like there was never a time when I really wanted to read something that was an article or a textbook and I couldn't. I always had access to everything that I needed to do all the right required reading for my essays. So academically, it was fine. And socially, as I already mentioned, of course, there were a lot of sort of down times when you would feel like you just wanted to sort of go to our coffee shop stacks and like have a coffee with a friend or go and have a pizza with a friend, and you couldn't. But I think certainly in my French group, we had our own kind of Zoom calls and pub quizzes and all that kind of stuff. And again, as president of the JCR, when lockdown was first introduced, I decided to create sort of like a series of different online social events, just try and maintain that sort of college community aspect that I referenced earlier. And that ranged from, we had a day where everyone posted pictures of them with their pets. We had a sort of a come dine with St. Anne's where people would make sort of like a small menu and make the food items, and then we'll post them and we'd all vote on our favorites. We sort of capitalized on TikTok and TikTok's popularity. We had a St. Anne's TikTok competition where every week I would recreate a TikTok and make a food of myself and then post that, and then other members of the college would recreate it and post their versions, and a whole other range of different activities that we all did online. I certainly enjoyed them. I like to think the rest of the college enjoyed them. It felt like very much that we were sort of still keeping in touch with each other, still having a bit of fun. It meant that sort of we weren't sitting at home like bored all day, that we had something to sort of keep ourselves doing and keep ourselves busy. So I think socially, certainly far better than I expected. The thing, obviously, when everything sort of first went into lockdown, it was almost like a bit of a panic moment. It's like, oh no, what's going to happen? But I think, as May referenced, everyone, all these societies, JCRs, colleges and whatnot, really want to sort of keep in touch and maintain that social aspect. And I think certainly St. Anne's as a whole, I think, dealt with that really well. And we even still had, Helen mentioned, obviously, the formal dinners, which we couldn't have massively in person. But online, at the end of term, we still had a sort of like massive end of term kind of like Teams call with loads of tutors and staff and students from across the whole college. I remember I had like my tin of pink gin at hand, so it almost felt like I was there at a fancy formal. So yeah, it's still, I think there's a lot of sort of things that can transition quite well online. And obviously a lot of that perhaps won't be as much of an issue next time when people are in Oxford. But but I think that there's plenty of opportunities, and I think the university's done everything it can and is doing everything it can to make sure that no one is at a disadvantage at all from any of the sort of side effects and knock-on effects of us being in the pandemic.
Thanks for that. I think, as a college, we do pride ourselves on being a community. So academic staff, non-academic staff and students all working together to make the college the best place it can be for everyone. And we treat the students as adults, young adults, but adults. And so if they have ideas, changes they want to bring about, we're always happy to talk with them and work with them, because often they have great ideas and a best place to make sure that things are working well. And that's certainly our approach to next term, to keeping everyone safe and well and able to carry on their studies. So I'm sure working together we'll get to the best position we can. I guess it's coming towards the end of this session. I thought maybe I'd ask each of the students, if you were going to give advice sort of retrospectively to the adults who were around you when you were applying to Oxford. So that might have been your parents or teachers or other kind of adults who are a part of your life, and say to them, either please do this thing or please really, really don't do that thing. What would your advice be to the parents, carers, teachers that are out there wanting to support someone who's applying for Oxford? I'll go Joseph, Maya, Suna, sorry.
Good question. I think one thing I'd say, and it's quite sort of hard to get it across very accurately, is almost like don't really build it up. I think certainly sometimes my parents did that. They sort of would build it up in ways like always going on about the interview ad nauseam, just constantly talking about it, and your Oxford student. It's quite hard to sort of express, but just certainly sort of going on about it and how important it is. I felt like I was constantly being told by whether it was my parents or my teachers about how important this was, and it's kind of like, yeah, I know it's important. You don't need to remind me. I think if anything, just obviously, I don't think it should be something that you shouldn't talk about. It's about finding that sort of happy balance where you're not sort of, it doesn't become an elephant in the room you're not talking about it, but at the same time you're not going on about it sort of all the time. So I guess it's just treat it like you would sort of just any kind of like normal kind of interview, that it's not try and sort of, don't treat it as the Oxford interview, because I think a lot of the time, certainly I found that made me more nervous and made me think that it was. And of course, moving to university, your Oxford interview is something that's important, but it's not sort of like necessarily that life-changing as sometimes it felt like it was being made out to be. I think don't sort of build it up and go on and on about it. Find that happy balance. And I know that's sort of very vague. I'm sorry about that, but hopefully you understand what I mean.
I totally agree with Joseph, like trying not to pile the pressure on and just kind of having a mindset of like, it is what it is, like try your best. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. I think that helped me out quite a lot. But I think like a specific like piece of advice, I don't know how useful it'll be, because I feel like if you're watching this Q&A about Oxford, you probably already know things about Oxford. But for me, like I nearly missed all of my application deadlines. So don't do that. Definitely look for application process like timelines, because I know they're out there. I know that now that I do loads of outreach work, but I didn't know that at the time. So I nearly missed my aptitude test. I nearly missed my written work deadline, and I don't know how. I honestly bumbled my way through the application process, but I somehow did. So check for your course and make sure, your student's course, make sure that they know if they have written work to hand in, and make sure they know if they have to sit a test. Because I knew a girl in my year who was applying for biology, so we kind of talked about it, but she didn't have a test or written work, so I didn't know that I should check that I might have a test or written work. So yeah, please just check that the application process, check you understand it, because it is a little bit confusing because it's different at other unis, but it's not too bad, so just check.
So medicine's a bit different because you do apply early anyway, so I did not have the same stress there. I knew I had to apply early with all the Oxbridge people. I think mine would be kind of what Jesus said about the balance, because at the time of like interviews and stuff, my parents like helped me with like interviews by asking questions and stuff. And at the time I was like, please, no more. I don't want any more questions. I don't want to answer anything else. I don't want to think about it ever again. But like it did kind of help me like talk through my ideas. Like it was just getting the practice, but also at the same time like being reassured like it's not only uni. Like you could, if it doesn't work out, there are other options. Like you don't. It's not the be all and end all of your life. Like you've still got so much other things that could happen. There's like yes, you want to do well, like you want to get in. If you're applying, you want to be there. So it's like the balance of that, but like not it being your only way like forward, I think is what I would say.
Fantastic advice, and my thanks to all of you for your time today. It's great to see you all, and we look forward to welcoming you back to Oxford. For those of you who are listening, I just want to encourage you, please do go on to the St Anne's College website. If you go to the Open Day page, there's a video tour of the college. So if you want to see our gardens and buildings, one of our students, biology students, Nora, has a tour on there. And you'll also see questions and answers from students and from tutors that have been taking place during the Open Day. And then we also have something called the Access Platform, whereby if you or your student has questions for any of our student ambassadors, you can type them in and you will get an answer. So any anxieties which maybe haven't been resolved or answered, please do just ask. We're very keen to share any information that we can. So thank you very much, and hope the rest of your day and evening goes well. Thanks very much. Bye.